Thank you. And my name is Hillary O'Toole. I am the executive director of BCMAC, and I'm here with my colleague Hillary Flint. She'll be behind the scenes today, and I'm sure speaking up when we need her expertise on the other side. So I have been with BCMAC for about a year and a half now, and I'm really excited to start talking about the programming that we've been able to put in place and the new partnerships that we've been able to expand, and really talk about the work that we have been able to achieve in Beaver County. So again, I thank you for joining. We welcome you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask us. And we're going to move forward with the program now. So today we're really excited to welcome two experts from our partners, Three Rivers Waterkeeper, excuse me. And they work to protect all of our waterways, even here in Beaver County. They do a fantastic job. Koa Rates is a Pittsburgh native with a background in ecology and evolution from the University of Pittsburgh. She's very passionate about restoring ecological health to our waterways and previously led a citizen science project tracking plastic pollution from the Shell Plastics plant. Hannah Homan is a lifelong Western Pennsylvanian with a degree in community, environment, and development from Penn State. She has extensive experience in waste reduction and previously coordinated riverfront cleanups with Allegheny Cleanways before joining Three Rivers Waterkeeper to continue tackling the water pollution. We're incredibly grateful to have them here to share their insights on protecting Beaver County's water. And with that, welcome Koa and Hannah, and you all may take it away.
Great, thank you so much. I'm gonna try to share the right screen here. Okay. So can everyone see just the presentation? Is it looking good?
Yeah, we don't see our notes.
Perfect. I'm Koa, and Hannah, if you want to start, I figure we can do that.
Yeah, we can ping pong around. But I'm Hannah Homan. Thank you so much for all being here. Today, we're going to be overviewing a couple of different things, but NIPD's data and compliance in Beaver County will define all of those things as we go. But I think we can just head on to the next slide, Koa, unless you have anything else to add. So we are Three Rivers Waterkeeper. We have the mission to protect the water quality of the Monongahela, Allegheny, and Ohio rivers and their respective watersheds. We also have the vision to have drinkable, fishable, and swimmable waters in the Monongahela, Allegheny, and Ohio rivers and their respective watersheds. And we do that work in a number of ways, whether it's on the computer, on a boat, on land. We're watching in a lot of different ways. And we are also a member of the Waterkeeper Alliance. So today we'll be reviewing, where I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of kind of our run of show of our slides so that you can have some context. Today we're going to be sharing parts of our ongoing research project regarding compliance and enforcement of water discharges actually in all of our jurisdiction, but we'll be talking specifically about Beaver County today. We will also be sharing the exciting news about our passive monitoring buoy that has been implemented in Beaver County. And we will also be covering our monitoring work that we do in Beaver County that includes facilities such as Bethesda, our ongoing Nurdle Patrol and Shell, and also our ongoing work around the Styropec facility downstream from there. I also just wanted to give some context about Three Rivers Waterkeeper's jurisdiction. So as you can see, we cover most of Allegheny County and the surrounding portions in southwestern PA. I wanted to zoom in and show everybody where our jurisdiction within Beaver County exists. As just to note, we will go outside of our jurisdiction, but this is where we primarily do our work. So to start, our team has been working on a review of compliance and enforcement of federal environmental regulations and self-reported pollution discharges into the waters of the United States, specifically in our region. We first identified high priority facilities with water discharge permits based on the types and amounts of pollutants that the facility discharges to create a list that represent our region's water discharge facilities. Water discharges into our waterways are regulated by NIPDES, which stands for National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, due to the federal legislation, the Clean Water Act. The United States EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, oversees compliance and enforcement of the Clean Water Act, Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection, PADEP, is delegated to task that in PA. NIPD's permits allow a certain amount of pollutants to be discharged into the waters of the United States with effluent limitations. And when those limits are exceeded, the facility is violating the Clean Water Act. That also can happen if they could also violate the Clean Water Act when they fail to submit their self-reporting data, which Co will deep dive into later on in our talk. But when those limits are exceeded or they don't report their information, they are violating or in non-compliance of the Clean Water Act. And in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania DEP is the regulatory authority that holds those polluters accountable. If the PADEP fails to hold polluters accountable, impacted residents or organizations can file citizen suit provisions against the polluter for their violations. And during this ongoing research project, information that we compiled include compliance history, which came from EPA's ECHO website, which is Enforcement and Compliance History Online. It's a very easy to use website. I recommend anybody look up facilities through that. We also looked at via ECHO enforcement via informal enforcement actions, which the EPA works to ensure compliance with environmental requirements. When warranted, the EPA will take civil or criminal enforcement action against those violators of environmental laws. We also compiled EDMR data, which stands for Electronic Discharge Monitoring Report, which Co will be digging into later. In our research, we were able to compile 69 facilities within our jurisdiction based on the parameters we were looking at, which was high priority facilities in our region that we have been, whether it's been reported or we saw it through different in the news or also through the PA bulletin when we look at all of the permits that come through. Within Beaver County, so out of the 69 facilities, 11 of them were in Beaver County, notably because most of our work is happening in Allegheny, but we also, work a good bit into Beaver. One of the portions we'll be talking about is Beaver County's facility compliance data. So in this table, you can see that I outlined county, number of Clean Water Act permitted facilities, quarters with non-compliance in the last 12 quarters, 3 years. So each quarter is calculated throughout this. And then we also calculated the average number of quarters of non-compliance per facility per year. Very long sentence, but it's actually to simplify this information. And so that we can see that and we're comparing mainly Allegheny County and Beaver County as we're neighbors, and we'll be able to see that we're a bit closer within terms of the industries that we look at in the area. But while Allegheny County had 36 facilities and Beaver County had 11, you can see that on the quarters with non-compliance, there were 148 quarters for those 36 facilities, but in Beaver, there was 43 quarters out of 11 facilities. And when we calculated the average, we were able to see that Beaver County and Allegheny County were really similar when it comes to the average number of quarters of noncompliance per facility per year, at 1.30 quarters of noncompliance per facility per year in Beaver County and 1.37 quarters of noncompliance per facility per year in Allegheny County. Co, do you have anything to add there?
No, I think that covers it.
Awesome. All right, great. We can go to the next slide. So we then compared this information. We also then compared information about formal enforcement actions. And in Allegheny, we can see in this, I also cover county, number of Clean Water Act permitted facilities that we looked at, the number of Clean Water Act formal enforcement actions over the last 5 years. And so also notably back in the former slide, that was over 3 years, which is also why we had to control the number of facilities to be able to calculate and be able to have a comparable number. And so you can see that in Beaver County, while we had 48 quarters of noncompliance, we had 3 formal enforcement actions in the last 5 years. And then that average, and then also Allegheny County had 12. And so when we did that average, we see that Beaver County and Allegheny County, there's a 0.09 average number of, I have an error in my slides, I'm so sorry about that. But we had an average number of formal enforcement actions at 0.05 in Beaver County. In my next slide, I will show that I compared these two numbers to make it a lot simpler. I created this graph for us for this presentation. And so this overviews Clean Water Act noncompliance and enforcement in Allegheny County and Beaver counties. As you can see on the y-axis, we have the averages, and on the x, we have Allegheny County and Beaver County. And we can click on the Beaver County it'll highlight everything for us. So you can see that Beaver County, you can see that both counties have a higher average of numbers of quarters of noncompliance per facility per year as compared to the number of formal enforcement actions per facility per year. You can see that there's quite a big dip whenever that little yellow line on the bottom of those. But we can go to our next slide, Koa. All of this to say on my end of things that there are some limitations with the EPA echo data. There's an underestimate of, this is an underestimate of what is happening. According to EPA's ECHO website, Pennsylvania's Clean Water Act data problem is related to discharge monitoring and compliance data that is not correctly transferred into EPA's program data system, which is the ICIS NIPDES program. Therefore, some of these facilities may be incorrectly flagged as non-compliant. And so there's some issues with the communication between these different facilities and these different agencies they need to report to. But another thing that we noted as we've been going through this process is that some of the facilities that have formal enforcement actions actually have, in the last few years, have had no quarters of non-compliance, meaning that there's potentially happening is that these legacy facilities that are no longer in operation are having formal enforcement actions post. We can't make that conclusion yet. We're still working through that information. But also the last piece of it is that there are more quarters of non-compliance per facility per year compared to the average number of formal enforcement actions per facility per year. We can go on to our next slides, Koa.
Great. Well, thank you, Hannah. So Hannah did a great job talking about, the ECHO data, so that's the EPA data, but I'm going to shift to talking about the EDMR data, which is the data that we get from the DEP. And so I'm going to start with talking about what parameters were exceeded. So first I'm going to talk about overall. So in all of the different counties, we found all of these different things were exceeded. There were 31 different parameters that were exceeded overall. And this is over the last 5 years. We just used 2019 to 2024. And as you can see, I highlighted some of these. And so total suspended solids, aluminum, manganese, and zinc were the most exceeded parameters. And I talk about these a little bit here. And one of the things that I want to note about these things is that there are, obviously some really bad outcomes if people come into contact with a lot of these things, but this isn't something that if you're just recreating on the water, normally this isn't necessarily something that you'd come in contact with these things, but I just kind of highlighted the things that were exceeded a lot, and the things that can happen when humans and aquatic species come in contact with them. So I'm going to start with aluminum, which was exceeded 164 different times. There's potential links to Alzheimer's, and it can also be harmful to aquatic species and is also known to bioaccumulate. We also have total suspended solids, which was exceeded 151 times. This is also known to be harmful to aquatic species, especially fish and algae. We also have zinc, which is another metal, 116 exceedances, and high levels of this can cause things like nausea and fever, and can also be toxic to aquatic species and can bioaccumulate. And finally, we have manganese, which was exceeded 102 times, and high levels of this can cause neurological effects and can also be toxic to aquatic species. And so now I'm going to focus in on the parameters that were exceeded in Beaver County specifically. So there were 14 different parameters that were exceeded in Beaver County. The most common ones are highlighted here. So we have biochemical oxygen demand, total suspended solids, total residual chlorine, oil and grease, and pH. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those here. So again, total suspended solids can be harmful to aquatic species. Total residual chlorine has the potential to cause carcinogenic chlorogenic compounds like chloroform to form, and can result in skin rash, and can also be toxic to fish and other aquatic species. Biochemical oxygen demand was exceeded twice, and it directly impacts the amount of dissolved oxygen that's in the rivers and streams. And this is important because that's how the aquatic species that live in there get their oxygen. It's through the dissolved oxygen. And so the greater the BOD, the more rapidly oxygen is depleted in the stream or river. And high BOD can cause aquatic organisms to become stressed and even die. Oil and grease, we know that some of the petroleum hydrocarbons that are found can affect human kidneys, livers. It can also decrease oxygen levels, and like with BOD, can harm aquatic species. And finally, we have pH. Freshwater criteria is 6.5 to 9, but the ideal level for most aquatic organisms is actually 6.5 to 8. So when we see pH levels get outside of those ranges, especially for extended periods of time, we can see issues with different aquatic species or plants and decreased reproduction, as well as decreased growth and even death. And so now I'm going to go into a few of the more concerning parameters that we see in Beaver County. We have toluene, which was exceeded once. It can cause central nervous system issues, including, sleepiness, headaches, fatigue, and it can also be toxic to aquatic life. We have chloroform, which can cause different sores, liver and kidney damage, probable human carcinogen, and is toxic to aquatic animals. Oil and grease, already talked about that, but petroleum hydrocarbons can affect humans and aquatic species. And then finally, phenol, which can cause irritation to human skin, eyes, and mucous membranes, as well as a lot of long-term impacts, and can be toxic to aquatic species. And so that was just kind of highlighting the different things that we know were exceeded in Beaver County. And now I'm going to talk about the different facilities that self-reported exceedances. And so here I have this list of 7 different facilities. Again, this is the time period of 2019 to 2024, so a 5-year time period. But at the top of the list, we have Styropec with 47 exceedances. And then as we go down the list, we have Bethesda, Little Blue Run, Shell Chemical Appalachia, BASF Monaca Plant, Paris Fly Ash Landfill, and Baden Sewage Treatment Plant. And as you can see, the number of exceedances ranges from almost 50 to as low as 3, but this is just all of the facilities that self-reported through EDMR, those exceedances in Beaver County. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the facilities and exceedances by river watershed specifically, kind of just compare the different watersheds. So Beaver County, we're talking about the Ohio River, and I've highlighted that here, but we can compare it to the Allegheny and Monongahela rivers. So here I have river watershed, the number of facilities, total number of exceedances, the number of facilities that are exceeding, and then the average number of exceedances per facility. So if we look at the Ohio River, you can see we have actually the highest number of facilities and the second highest number of total exceedances. And we also have the highest number of facilities exceeding and the second highest average number of exceedances per facility at 17.7. So this is just interesting to kind of look at and compare the different river watersheds in our region. And then I also broke it out by county. As you can see, again, we have count of total facilities, exceedances, number of facilities exceeding, and then the average number of exceedances per facility. And again, as Hannah was saying, the majority of the facilities was in Allegheny County, but we had 22 in Allegheny County, 9 in Beaver County. And then we have Beaver County also following Allegheny with 139 exceedances, 7 facilities exceeding, and an average of 19.9 exceedances per facility. So this again is just interesting to kind of compare, even though we had different numbers of facilities in each county, how they kind of stacked up with the average exceedances. And so to kind of summarize the data that I've kind of compiled with this EDMR data, there are data limitations. This data doesn't show us pollution issues from facilities or pollution areas that might not have a NPDES permit. There are certain areas like we were talking a little bit about legacy pollution earlier. There are certain areas that, are just these brown fields that don't necessarily have a NPDES permit, but can still be issues, so they wouldn't be reporting. Another example of a place where the data is limited is something like U.S. Steel Irvin Works. The first photo, they're the top photo that I have on this slide, is oil on the Monongahela River outside of U.S. Steel Irvin Works. And this is something that wasn't necessarily, caught by the NPDES permit or the EDMR system. So this is something that we've been seeing regularly for decades, is oil on the Monongahela River coming from U.S. Steel Irvin Works, and that doesn't necessarily show up in their EDMR data reporting. Another thing is monitor and report parameters. A lot of these NPDES permits have at least some of their parameters are just monitor and report, which means that there's actually no limit set in the permit, so they can't necessarily get docked for an exceedance because there's actually no maximum that they're allowed to put out. They just have to report what they're putting out to the DEP. And so that makes it kind of hard because some of these permits actually have only monitor and report parameters, so nowhere in there is there actually a limit to what they're putting out into the environment. Another thing is emerging contaminants, things like PFAS. They just started adding PFAS to new NIPDES permits, but it's only, I think, the 4 most common or the ones that, the EPA has set limits for. But we see issues with this because, especially in places like landfills where they have, numerous different PFAS and different contaminants that would be put out into the ecosystem, we only see certain things like these 4 PFAS in their permit, and so they're not actually testing for the other things that could be coming out. And this doesn't cover all facilities, like Hannah was saying. This is, a subset of facilities. It's not exhaustive. If we did every facility, I think this would be years and years of work, just like compiling and looking at all that information. But I think this is a good snapshot and a good start for us to, whenever we, see a new facility, we can add it to our list. We can kind of look into it and see if their violations stack up as well. And so now I'm going to kind of shift to what can you do and some of the work we do in Beaver County. And so one of the things that you can do to kind of like help with this like issue is report pollution when you see it. We have 3 Rivers Watch, which is a program that we do to help spot and report pollution. And we have our staff member Jess who runs these. They're really great. They kind of allow you to see different types of pollution, differences between material pollution, chemical pollution. The second photo I have here is actually of Shell's outfall, and you can see there's some foam behind the boom. And so that's an example of something that you can report to the DEP, and you can learn how to look at that and then report it if you were to see something like that. The second thing you can do is call or talk to your local representatives to pressure PADEP to apply meaningful enforcement actions, because a lot of what we're seeing is, there's all of these facilities that are regularly exceeding, or they might have this certain number of exceedances, but we're not actually seeing meaningful enforcement action. We're seeing a lot of this kind of pay to pollute situation, which is not great. We don't want these facilities to just send in their monthly check and pay for the exceedances that they're putting into our waterways. We want there to be real change. And so now I'm going to talk about something exciting. We launched a buoy in partnership with BC MAC. We were able to use some funds from the Shell Mitigation Fund to launch the buoy. And it will have, eventually we will have public data, but right now, it's sitting on the Beaver River, and it's collecting data as we speak every 10 minutes. There's a lot of really cool data that we can get from this buoy. This is an example. This is a screenshot of the back end of what we see whenever we look at the buoy data. And eventually we're working to make a public dashboard so that you can see this. But right now, unfortunately, you have to have an account and it doesn't work for public viewing. But this is just an example. We have temperature, conductivity, pH, dissolved oxygen. That's what's shown here. We also have turbidity, chlorophyll, different algae, and we can add other sensors if we see them necessary. And so this is really exciting because it's live data. It allows us to see if there's, if something happens upstream, we can see if there's a change. Maybe there's a big jump in pH or a decrease in dissolved oxygen. And then we can kind of try to link that to something because we know it happened. And so that's pretty exciting. We're very excited about that. And eventually we can send out information about the dashboard once it's available. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about another location that kind of just shows the disconnect between EDMR reports and real life. So Bethesda is located on Raccoon Creek. It's right next to the Shell cracker plant. And they essentially have monthly or almost monthly exceedances of selenium, zinc, pH. But the issue is when we go to take samples, we've actually found that their pH has been really high or really low. We've gotten pHs as low as 5.4, and their low limit is 6. We've gotten pHs as high as 9.3, and their high limit is 9. And the thing is that when we look at their EDMR reporting data, that doesn't necessarily show up. because they're not, you know, reporting all of the data all of the time. And so we are actually finding that they're probably exceeding a whole lot more, and most of the time, even though it might show up as just a few exceedances a month. And so that's something that kind of just shows how important it is to do extra testing, and how the EDMR system could be improved because it's self-reporting. You are relying on these industries to report correctly and frequently enough that you get the full picture. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about just some other work we do. A lot of you probably know about this, but I'm just going to give a background about our nurdle patrols that we do with Mountain Watershed Association. So nurdles are plastic pellets that are produced by manufacturers like Shell by using fracked natural gas. We use this trawl here that I'm holding in this photo to go back and forth downstream in the river to look for nurdles. And then we sort through them with volunteers and community members to find these little plastic pellets. The ones in my hand here are actually from land. And when doing these nurdle patrols, we actually found that there was, you know, a bigger plastics problem in Beaver County. Because they're everywhere and they're all different shapes, sizes, colors. And so we're seeing nurdles from a lot of different manufacturers, and they're probably entering our waterways in a lot of different ways, whether that be transportation or directly from a facility. So one example of this is actually Styropec, which is right across Raccoon Creek from the Shell Cracker plant. And in 2023, along with Penn Environment, we filed a federal lawsuit against Styropec, BVPV Styrenics, for discharging plastics pellets into our waterways. As you can see here, like there on the leaf, you can see there's probably 100 little pellets there, and they were just releasing countless numbers of them into our waterways. And we are in the final stages of negotiations right now. We can't say anything yet, but we're hopeful to have a result soon. But yeah, that's pretty much what we wanted to talk about today. You know, some of the work that we're doing in terms of NPDES data with ECHO, EDMR data, and also a lot of the work that we're doing in Beaver County. And we're hoping to, you know, do a lot more and work more with the community. So thank you very much. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat, say them now, or email me or Hannah. We would love to talk to you, but thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I think it's worth noting that I have actually been out on the boat with Three Rivers Waterkeeper collecting nurdles, and it's something I think it's honestly kind of life-changing as a resident of Beaver County, because you don't realize that these things are in the water, like no one's talking about it. And when we went out, it was freezing in December, but I really didn't think we were going to find anything, and it was shocking what we were able to pull from the water. So we really can't thank you enough. I'd like to open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions for Koa or Hannah?
Or thoughts or concerns, you know, any of those things. We love to hear anything.
And I feel like I went a little fast, but a lot of this information will also be released in a big report that we're working on. There's a ton more data, you know, a lot more stats and things from all the different counties and different waterways, and just like a lot more detailed than what we were able to, you know, touch on today. Like I think we have a draft right now and it's like 50 pages long. Hopefully it'll be shorter than that, but we're gonna
I don't know
cut
if
it
it
down,
will
but
be.
yeah.
Because we also did look at other environmental parameters during when we looked at the EPA ECHO data. We looked at Clean Air Act, we looked at Clean Water Act. We also looked at RCRA, which RCRA, there's not as much information on that side, the resource. I'm going to caveat, I've been working out on the river in Memphis, and I'm down in Tennessee right now doing some work. So my brain's a little bit fried. So my apologies on if I pause or I forget the words for stuff right now. I'm just a little warm. But we're looking at a lot of different things, and we're trying to learn as much as we can about these facilities and share information to the public that's digestible and help them inform how to take the next steps when they're engaged in encountering pollution or just living with it, like all of us do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We're so lucky to have you all doing what you do. And Hannah, please, take a rest after this, get some sleep, log off, Take care of yourself, because we know the work is going to continue, but we really appreciate you. So thank you.
We appreciate you both very much.
Thanks, Hannah. So if we don't have any questions or comments, I guess we'll just continue on with the program. So now we're going to move on to updates from BCMAC. And if anyone has any questions, again, please feel free to raise your hands. We really want this to be a safe space where everyone can feel comfortable asking us anything. We're trying our very best to be transparent in every step of the way with our AirSense project and with our work in general. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we are now announcing that you can sign up to host our NMET mobile air monitor for 2 weeks. And NMET is the brand name. The monitor is hooked up and self-reliant, self-sufficient. It runs off of gigantic solar panels that allow the air monitor to operate independently. So we wouldn't need to access any power at your home. It runs off of cellular data, and it is seeking to measure benzene at this time. And then in a few months to a year, we are going to switch over to monitoring 1,3-butadiene as well. And this is available for anyone in Beaver County. So if you feel like you have a need, here's the sign-up sheet. You can definitely put your name, address in there. We will contact you to figure out when's a good date to come and drop off the mobile monitor. There are some stipulations attached with that, and we've included them in the sign-up sheet. So please make sure that you just read that over before you just sign your name. We also wanted to remind everyone that our Eyes on Air webpage is live, and you can access it by visiting our website, which is marcellusawareness.org. And when you're in marcellusawareness.org, you click on Eyes on Air. It's its own separate tab, but the webpage hosts our real-time air data from our AirSense project. So those 5 air qual monitors that we purchased. It also showcases the Purple Air Map and outlines some other tools that everyday community members could find useful and helpful when you're trying to look at the air data and figure out what means, whether you should be concerned or what means, hey, everything looks normal and stable. We really tried to make it very user-friendly. So yeah, we just really want to reiterate and make everyone aware of the fact that the real-time air monitoring data is available for Beaver County. It's up and running right now. Please visit the website and take a look. Hillary just dropped the link in the chat. In addition to the webpage, we are starting to receive quarterly reports from the Environmental Health Project. And I know I'm throwing out a lot of names here, but they really help us figure out and analyze the data that we receive from our air qual monitors, because Hillary and I are a staff team of 2. It makes it imperative that we have really great relationships with our partners, such as Three Rivers Waterkeeper, and in this instance with analyzing the air data, the Environmental Health Project. The reports will be made public, and we are also holding office hours so that you all can visit and ask questions to EHP, because you may have data questions that the BCMAC staff members, Hillary and myself, just can't answer. Our first AirSense office hours take place next Wednesday, March 19th at 7 p.m., not 7:30. And I encourage you all to please register at the link that Hillary is going to place in the chat. It'll be recorded and it will be placed on our YouTube page, but we would really love it if everyone who has questions after visiting the website or looking at the data, that you visit, because if you have questions, it's likely that other community members have questions as well. And this is the place and time to ask them. And we would love to share that, all of the information that you receive with everyone else. So again, that's going to be Wednesday, March 19th. And I believe Hillary is dropping that link in the chat as well. So let's take a shift. We're going to shift from strictly BCMAC webpage to us sharing project updates that we work on with the Breathe project. So we have been out taking episodic samples for Project Spotlight, which is our partnership project that we have with the Breathe project. So we have air sample results from February 4th. And then on March 31st at the Monaco Library, we are going to be discussing those results in person with the Breathe project, with Emily and Dr. Lau, and I think Hillary's going to drop that RSVP in the chat as well. We are going to have an option to join via Zoom. And so Dr. Lau and Emily, who spearheads the project on the Breathe side, went out again this week to grab samples on Monday. And so hopefully we'll have the samples to post sooner than later, but once we get them, we will put them up. But if you have any questions about any of this, I really would recommend that you join us on March 31st at 6 p.m. at the Monaco Library. And now, with all of this talk about pollution and everything that we're doing in terms of testing, you might be starting to ask yourself, how do I actually get involved in this? I have a full-time job, or maybe I just feel like there are a lot of stressors or other things in my life, but I'm still very concerned about this. And BCMAC recognizes that a lot of people, no matter where you are, you have your phone in your hand or you have a computer in front of you. We want to make it really easy for people to interact with us. So what we've done is created a new Facebook group. So it's not our page, it's our group. And this is where we would like everyone to begin reporting so that other community members can see it in real time and maybe open their window or go outside and see if they're maybe experiencing the same thing. It's a place where we can just, discuss concerns that we have about our local environment. The page is going to remain the same. Please keep in mind, this is just the group. And we will start, we'll still be accepting Eyes on Pollution reports like on Instagram and everywhere else, still through our phone number that we have listed on everything and via email. But we're really hoping that this group can kind of inspire your neighbor to join, and put their experiences with the pollution that they're experiencing, or with something that they smell. It'll give everyone an opportunity to kind of just interact in a really immediate way, if that makes sense, which we all know is important. So Hillary's going to drop that link in the chat as well. We're just dropping links everywhere today. We have a lot going on. And so, we always say, if you see something, if you smell something, if you hear something, please report it. In this case, we would like you to report it via the DM, like just the private messaging on social media, or you can email us at report@marcellusawareness.org. Or Dr. Lau has his own phone in his home, and we're going to post the phone number there. You can feel free to leave a message about how all of this, about what you see or about what you smell or about a concern that you have. If you're not sure what to report or how to report it, or who you should be reporting these things to, we have it all laid out on our website, and Hillary's going to drop that in the chat as well. And then while we're on the topic of this, does anyone have any any community reports that you would like to talk about? Because we would love to hear them, especially in this space. I know that Shell had a testing day on Monday. Dr. Lau, do you have anything that you would like to share with the group?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, I was having trouble with my computer, so I'm on the phone. Yeah, Monday was a maintenance day. They were doing some maintenance on the polymerization unit there, and they were supposed it might make some loud sounds when they were venting some of the reactors and stuff. I don't know if anybody heard anything or not, but as Hillary said, we did take a sample during the maintenance time, and we'll have it analyzed in the lab and let you know what we find out. And they did just post this afternoon on their Facebook page that they're having another maintenance session coming up tomorrow morning and lasting until Friday. And this time they're working on their ethylene cracker units, and that involves some of the production gas they may have to dispose of. So they may be flaring that off in either their enclosed ground flares, which we call the soup cans, or the large E-flares. So let us know if you see any flaring action or smoke or smell anything there. We are prepared to go out and take another air sample. We have another Suma canister ready to take a sample either tomorrow or Friday. So let us know what you see.
Thanks,
Thank
Cliff.
you.
I did just drop, I monitor our social media accounts and different Facebook groups in Beaver County. And so I dropped some things in the chat that were comments from community members of what they heard, saw, smelt, felt on Monday. And it appears as if, people in Beaver County are not too happy with what went down. It's pretty sad when we have community members, regretting their move to Beaver County. And so if you're on this call and you're not used to reporting or voicing your opinions, just know that you are not alone. There are so many other people in Beaver County that feel the same way, which is why we created the Eyes on Pollution Facebook group, because it's a private group so that other people don't have to see what you're saying outside of that group. And it can be scary in a community like ours that's full of small towns. We understand that privacy is important to people, and we need a place to talk about this because it is affecting our day-to-day lives. So read the comments I put in the chat and just know you are not alone in this. There are other people that are feeling the same way.
Thank you so much, Hillary. And if you're curious about any of this, any of the past incidents that happened, remember, you can visit Shell's community page. The DEP hosts that, and they have a list of every malfunction, every violation, every permit modification, really every communication that they've ever had with Shell on their page. And Hillary is going to post that in the chat right now as well, that link. But really the fastest way to stay in touch and in the know about anything that's happening with us or with Shell or with any other, large polluter in Beaver County is to sign up for our mailing list, follow us on social media, and definitely visit our website because we try and update everything in real time. And Hillary's going to drop that information in the chat. This is our Facebook, Instagram, our link tree, which has a survey included on there that we would really appreciate if you took the time to complete. It's only 12 questions, pretty quick. Our mailing list link is there along with our website. And we are coming up on just about 10 to 8, and we're going to start wrapping it up. I guess this is the advantage to starting a little bit earlier. But I just wanted to remind everyone that Shell is seeking permit renewals that could allow even more toxic emissions in Beaver County than what we are experiencing. But right now, we have the opportunity to have our voices heard and fight back. We're hosting Decoding Shell's Permits Defending Our Future, a community education series to break down what's at stake and empower residents to take action. We actually held our first meeting on Monday at the Monaca Library. But we really need volunteers to help spread the word. We didn't have the community turnout that we were hoping for. So if you are up for handing out flyers, and it doesn't even have to be hand to hand, it's, maybe putting them on doorsteps or in connecting with neighbors in your neighborhood in Beaver County, and just talking with everyone. We really want to make sure that people know that we need you and you can get involved to push for stronger protections for Beaver County. So Hillary is going to drop the link to volunteer with us in the chat, along with the link to RSVP to all of our upcoming events. And we've got, like we said, we have a bunch. And so I really just want to thank you so much for being here, for joining us today. I want to thank Koa and Hannah. You all are doing fantastic work. Please keep it up. We're just so grateful, especially for the buoy and all of the work that you do here in our county, along with the work you're doing in Allegheny County. We honestly couldn't do any of what we do without our community base as well. And so I want to thank you all for joining. Next time, please invite a neighbor, invite a friend, family member. But until then, we just want to thank you, and please stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.